Stephen Amos. He's my friend from Albany, Georgia. Whoops, it looks like it just went live, so let me start over. Stephen Amos is my friend. He lives in Albany, Georgia, or as they say in Albany, Georgia, Albany. And he is a friend of many years, but we've just recently reconnected a business that we're doing together, a network marketing business. So I'm getting to know him. And recently on a training call, his wife mentioned that he had done this training in his living room the other night and had mentioned this cash flow quadrant. And I wanted to ask him some more questions about it. Stephen, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to do it. You've worked all day and just getting home and had supper. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Well, it's my privilege. I appreciate the fact that you would do this. Okay, so I've loaded up this quadrant that your wife had mentioned, and I would love just to know a little bit, you know, kind of as you've been researching, you're a fan of Robert Kiyosaki, and he uses this cash flow quadrant. But I thought it was really enlightening just to look at this employee, self-employed business owner, and investor. Based on your research and what you understand, could you just give us a little kind of a financial literacy 101 explanation of what this means?
Well, I would love to. I'll start off by saying that I'm not an expert on this. I am a student just like some of you that are watching. So, you know, you can learn what we've learned. There's a lot of information out there. Dave got this online, and this is by Robert Kiyosaki, and it is from a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. So that's where this information is coming from, and hopefully we can shed a little bit of light on it. And my goal is, I want to get you curious. I want to make you just kind of flip that switch in your mind, because that's what this quadrant is about. There is a left side and there is a right side. And what lies in between is basically a decision. And then after that decision is made, you just need some financial education. And that's what is going to set you up in whatever side of the quadrant that you want to be in. Now, you see here you have the employee, which basically means you have a job. You have self-employed, and I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit. You know, self-employed can be somebody who owns a small business. This can be somebody who is a specialist. Maybe they're a very highly paid employee. But if you look there, it says self-employed. In other words, you're still employed. You are still an employee. So you're still on that left side of the quadrant. When we move over to the right side, you have the business owner. And some people tend to think of this as a big business. But basically, it's any business that you own that if you leave for a year and come back, it'll still be going. Maybe even better, without you having to actively run it. And then underneath that, we have the investor who has learned the secret of making money work for them. So you have these four ways as you go through life. You're going to see people making money, and this is the four ways to do it. But the key, and my wife and I were talking about this before the broadcast, this is not meant to teach you where money comes from. The purpose of the quadrant is to train you how to think, because the people on the left side of this quadrant and the people on the right side of this quadrant, they think very, very differently. They see the world from a totally different light. They can look at the same thing and see two totally different realities. So the cash flow quadrant is about identifying how you think. It's about identifying how other people think. That way, if you decide you want to be in one particular quadrant, you can learn how to think, because how you think is going to define where you end up in this quadrant.
a mindset quadrant, and could you describe for us how maybe what are the differences in these, or in the way that people think? Is that possible, or is that going too deep?
Well, no, you can just look around you, and now what I say may kind of surprise you, but I'm hoping that this will, get your curiosity going about how people could think this way. But, if I'm talking to an employee, I can tell. They tell me they want a steady job, they want security, they want good benefits. When you talk to somebody like that, especially if you're a network marketer, realize that you're talking to an employee. And if they don't have that mindset shift, business is probably not going to be their thing, and that's okay. If you're talking to somebody who is self-employed, what are you going to hear? They're going to tell you, well, if you want to get the job done and you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. A big business owner is going to look at you and say, hey, I'm trying to find the right people for my team. Whereas an investor is going to say, what is the return going to be on my investment? And again, this is all stuff that is in the book Cash Flow Quadrant. But those are just a few differences in the way they look at the world. A big mindset shift is if you're on the E and S side, you see a world that doesn't have enough money. Very often these people will say, well, money doesn't grow on trees. But if you're on the right side of the quadrant, there's a different problem. There's actually too much money. And it's a good problem, but it's still a problem, and it's something that we have to deal with as business people and investors.
Wow, that is fascinating. And I think I know enough about your story to know that you didn't necessarily come from money. So I mean that somebody who who didn't go around this would grasp these principles and move forward. What is your strategy, or where would you like to personally in this quadrant?
The best place to be is on the right side. And the way that me and Donna are trying to move into this is starting by changing the way we think, because the obstacles that you face, and you'll hear this on the left side, well, if my circumstances were better, this, that, and the other, that's not it. A lot of it is up here. So we've had to change our thinking, and where we want to end up is having systems that work for us. That way we have more time to do things. We also want to have our money working for us, and that's a very biblical principle. You'll find that throughout Scripture. But what we're coming at is, again, the difference on the left side, you trade time for money. I don't think that's fair, because my time is of infinite value. I can't buy an extra 5 minutes for my life. So instead of doing that, I'm trading risk for profit. And if you can wrap your mind around that and see the beauty of that, that's what the quadrant is about.
Man, I absolutely love that, and you have whet my appetite to know more about this. I love that mindset thing. I didn't come from money either, and that was a pretty common statement that I heard up, and I don't know if it was my parents saying it or relatives or who said it, but there was this kind of scarcity mindset where I always felt like we were going to run out of something, and we never did. But there always was that in the back of our minds. And I've recently come to realize that the difference between the life that I have and the life that I want is me. And so if I can work on me and get my mindset corrected, then I really can achieve some of those goals and objectives that I have, even in a financial realm. So let me ask you something. You mentioned that you're not an expert. You certainly know about this than I do. I can interview you. And I'll be staying in touch with you and asking conversations to, just continue to trickle information down to me. How could somebody connect with you if they wanted to have a further conversation with you about this concept, or kind of quiz you about how to move from the left side of the quadrant to the right side of the quadrant?
Well, again, I will say, as I said before, the best place to start is with education. So if I was going to tell you to invest in something, like Warren Buffett said, invest in yourself. Get some education, and it doesn't have to be college. College is kind of a left side quadrant thing. On the right side, we like to talk about financial education. Robert Kiyosaki has a great line of books that'll help you get started. So I would definitely look into that. If you want to contact me, some of you that are watching are already friends with me on Facebook. Go ahead, contact me. I'd love to talk to you about it if you're interested. I also have an email address, obviously, stephenamos87@gmail.com. And maybe there's a way we can post that as well. But that's the best way to get in touch with me. And, where I don't know the answers, I can certainly point you to people who can answer your questions. The key is, are you teachable? If you're teachable, you'll go very far.
So just to wrap this up, you're saying that anybody, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of their debt, regardless of their background, this mindset change has to happen first, and that's essentially that mindset change doesn't anything in terms of dollars and cents, but it does cost probably emotionally, it costs mentally, and it probably costs the investment of time in the education. Did I kind of put that in a capsule okay?
Right. I think it's important because, like even the work that we do, I'm finding out is a good teacher for these principles. The mindset change has to happen first because, for instance, if you think on the left side, you're told to save, 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 work hard, save money. You cannot do that. That is not a good principle to live by. You need to have an emergency fund. I agree with that. But if you talk to a rich person, he gets really upset if there's too much money in his checking account. You want to give away money. You want to send it out, keep it going, keep it flowing, keep it invested. You don't want to keep it. You don't want to save it. You want it out there working and making money for you. And even that simple little thing, what I see as simple now, because I understand it, that can be very earth shattering and absolutely frightening if you've never understood that concept.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just scared some people, but there are some of us who get excited about those possibilities, and we're just risk takers enough to step out there. So hopefully maybe we can come back and do a short segment on along the lines of these mindset shifts, and I think it would be healthy and to watch my videos on my YouTube channel. And we can put your email address, comments under the YouTube video when it gets posted here in a few minutes.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much for talking. I'm going to end the broadcast, and man, I have a great weekend. Enjoy your family. And by the way, happy birthday, dude. I didn't even mention it's your birthday.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. 28.
How old? How old are you? 28? All right. Oh man, I wish I'm having these conversations at 28 instead of 48. But I'm glad I'm having them now, and I'm glad I'm having them with you. I'll end the broadcast. Thanks again, man.
All right.